Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 8 of the Veilcast. Is magic too awesome? Is it? I don't know. I have Chris and Alistair here today to help me figure out if it is too awesome. I want to know their opinions. I want to know my own opinion because I don't know yet, and I especially want to know your opinions. We have that nice chat box over there, so if you could just type away on it, that would be cool. How are y'all two doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm
Just
good.
woke up minutes ago, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I slept either, but you know, it's been a fun Saturday so far. Just resting and eager to talk about all this magic stuff.
Yeah, y'all got to sleep in today.
yeah.
At least I assume it's sleeping in whatever time it is for y'all.
It's
Well,
just
my-
9 p.m.
4 p.m. over here.
Oh, 9 p.m. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
for those asking in the chat box, no, we don't have Ziz here with us today. He had to work, unfortunately. So, in our own special brand of BSC content, I'm running the show. And speaking of BSC content, I want to start off the show with something a little bit different today. If we could, in 5 to 10 words, Alistair and Chris, give me your most batshit crazy idea for the magic system.
Wow. Make a ritual that summons like a god creature and wreaks havoc in the battlefield. I would
And
like to see
FF
something like that.
A Final Fantasy summon.
Yeah, you know, like you summon Bahamut and then he just comes like, "Rah!" And then
Exactly.
you know everybody's like, "Oh my God, we're hopeless," and this destroys the keep. And
It's
then,
suddenly a PvE battle.
yeah, exactly.
All right, Chris.
Actually, the magic system as presented in CU is pretty much what I want to see in a game in terms of magic.
All right, your sentence is over.
No, but the total customization of the spells and the freedom of making your own spells.
Okay, yeah. For myself, my own BSC idea is, imagine a mage is casting a spell long distance through the air, and another mage counterspells it while it's in midair.
Well, that would be
fun.
cool. Yeah, that's totally a buzz killer, you know. It's like, especially if it was this big fireball that you spent casting with like 3 other buddies, you know, and then boom, fireball, and then disappears. Denied.
Or actually intercept. You throw a fireball and the mage just in the middle of the air just intercepts the fireball and just throws it back to you.
Oh yeah, fireball reflection.
It could be
That
like
would be awesome.
There'd be a lot of cool things that could go with
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into these in a minute. I just wanted to.
I want to
Intro with
see
that?
I want to see the power dispute you have in Dragon Ball Z. You know, it's like you know, and then that thing is moving back and forward.
All right, but I just want to start off with something a little bit different, and I really didn't want to start off with a video, but now, to catch everyone up a little bit to all the crazy stuff we're going on about, I've got a little short video clip just to kind of go over the basic concepts of the magic system.
Happens? Should it be that all spells are pre-recorded or pre-created by our team? You know, that's not that interesting. Certainly there have been some great games out there that have had that system or systems like it. But it isn't everything it could be. And whether it was Dragon's Gate, or whether it was, or is, a wonderful game called Magica, which a lot of the team here like as well, what we wanted to do was create a magic system that puts not only the magic back into magic systems, but puts it in your hands as the player. So again, think of spell crafting. Think of building every spell that you want to create, and then you get to use it in the game. That's where the runes come in. Back in the D-Gate days, the only thing I could do using a text-based parser was say things like cast fireball or cast large fireball. And there was tons of other combinations, but that was the core system. And that's what we're thinking of using here. as a magic user, you will be given certain runes. You will then be able to use those runes to create a spell. But it's much more complicated than that. That's how it starts. As a magic user, you will have those runes inscribed in your body. At least that's what we're hoping. No guarantees, but the plan is to try to show that within the game. You then combine these runes to a spell. For example, just like the one I just gave, you use fire and ball. But it is a lot more complicated than that. You will have a whole host of combinations of runes that you can use to create very different spells. You will have reagents. You will have infusions. You will be able to create these spells to give you, I don't want to say unlimited because that would be silly. I don't even want to say tens of thousands of combinations, but you will be able to create a ton, because I think a ton is less than tens of thousands, of combinations. You will be able to, as a mage, sit down and work on these spells, perfect these spells. And that is where I think the beginning of putting magic into a magic system starts.
All right, so as we all know, they started this whole ability customization thing with the magic system in the first place, and then they ported it over to the combat system. So it's all really pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems. You know, like that they have the same creation. You know, was started with the magic idea, the ability creation thing, and then I think they're just changing the modifiers to fit the melee.
Yeah, I think it was first made for the magic, but I think it will fit the combat also pretty well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there's any issue with it fitting combat. I guess one thing I've been wondering about is it was created for Magic, and as we know, Magic in games, I mean, Magic can do just about anything, so Magic's got all kinds of stuff it can do anyway. Is it better for the Magic system? Does it fit better for it?
I think it does, especially because, you know, Magic has this science component in the lore. You know, like the concept of Magic is that it's a different kind of science, right? You know, it's basically, you know, you have elements, and then you can make fire magic, you can make ice magic, you can make earth magic. And, you know, people specialize, and the mages, they have these scrolls and these recipes and all kinds of documents that show rituals and how to make magic. So it's something that it's developed by will and creativity in the lore, right? So it makes sense to have a spell creation system, because essentially all spells were at some point created. People discover them as they go, right? While normally in other games, like combat has more of a, you know, it's just techniques that you learn, and it's more of a real world thing, you know. We have something to map to. While Magic, we can like go wild with it and kind of imagine anything. So.
Yeah, but still, combat is also in real life. Actually, there's a lot of different combat techniques that use more or less of your strength, more of your agility, more of your stamina, which is basically combat designed to tire your enemy, to beat them by making them tired and using their strength against them. So I think, yes, it's more adapted to Magic, but I think combat will do well in that. We'll see if they do as well as Magic and if they make it as interesting as Magic. But still, I think it can work.
Yeah, I think you have a good point that the different styles of combat kind of can be like elements in and of themselves. I mean, you know, if you're using an axe, well, there might be different things you can do with an axe that you can't do with a sword. Just like with, you know, ice element attacks, you might can do certain things that you can't do with fire element attacks, and vice versa. And you know, the magic system is supposed to have several things that do mirror the combat system. Like the mages, they mentioned mages having spell books that level up with them, and they have to get it maybe from crafters. So that's basically a weapon. It's a sword. The mage's sword is a spell book. So they have like the same mechanics going on there.
Yeah, but I think they're going to have to go a different route for this one. Otherwise, then Magic's going to be overpowered if that's the case, because they're going to have to treat elements or types of magic as weapons to kind of balance it out with what you have on the melee side, I guess. So
maybe you could have
basically,
different types of spell books.
yeah, and exactly, yeah, maybe one spell book for each element or something, and then you kind of have to use the one as, you know, just like a warrior uses a sword, a spear, an axe, shield, and something else, you know, because if they allow the spell book to have all kinds of magic in it, then then mages are going to be, you know, too versatile next to warriors. They will have, you know, ice, you know, freeze you on the floor and then hit you with a fireball. You know, that's not cool because warriors cannot, you know, hit it with a sword and then pull out a bow and shoot. We don't know how the weapon swapping system is going to work if it.
I hope
any.
they can't.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah,
in
but
TISO.
at the same time, just like we discussed in the episode about crafting, they will have to specialize to be more efficient. So a mage that is too versatile will not make as powerful spells as the one that is specialized, for example, in fire, in ice, or in wind. If they have all the elements, they will have basic spells for that. Plus, the counters for that, for the combatants, will be the EARS system, where you can engrave your weapons with counters for different elements. So there will be a way for both of them to actually compete and make things. Yeah, magic will be more flashy, but it always is. You deal with fireballs, you deal with tornadoes, because there will be the wind. Fire tornadoes with the spell combinations. You throw a fireball with a tornado spell, you might make a fire tornado. It will be more flashy, but it doesn't have to be more efficient.
And that gets into one thing I wanted to discuss. I really wanted to discuss is the combat, the systems themselves, the ability systems are kind of the same because they made magic and they copied it over to combat. How do you think they're going to be different? Because they've said they want each class to be powerful but distinct and different. So how are the mages going to be distinctly different from combat if their systems were the same?
Modifiers, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to have to do with the modifier.
And I think the mages will be really what we call the glass cannons. They're going to have to be pretty much static because MG said there won't be any casting while running. You will have to stay in place, make your spell
move slowly.
Or move slowly,
For
but cast your thing in place. So you are a sitting duck right there, which is literally for the game. But there's going to be perks and flaws for each type of combat, I think.
I definitely agree there
it.
will be, especially since in the video part we didn't show, they mentioned that the mages, to power their spells, are basically going to use health to power their spells. He did say he didn't want them to be glass cannons because that wouldn't be fun, but that they will kind of use their own health to power those powerful spells.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird though, right? Because that's a very weird concept, because how are not supposed to be glass cannons if you're using your own health? So if you cast a bunch of spells in a row and then a warrior gets to you, you're kind of screwed because you have no health, right? So basically, and then the warrior's now on you and he's interrupting your cast and doing damage, so if you try to cast spells to get away, you pretty much kill yourself, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the concept, is that mages aren't supposed to be in melee combat. If they get in melee combat, they're screwed, because they're not supposed to have a lot of instant cast spells. So if a warrior gets on them, they're not going to be able to do much, at least from my perspective.
It's probably going to be part of the balance, because if they were effective both in range and in melee, they would be overpowered, most definitely.
Yeah, and it kind of hinted on something else that's, I think, very different. It's actually not different. It actually is kind of the same, but not normally attributed to magic system, in that spells can interact physically with objects.
Yeah, this is a new concept. Normally, in games, there is no such thing. The spells are just graphical effects, and if you try to hit somebody that is behind a wall, you just get a message, line of sight,
Or goes through the wall.
Yeah, but it normally like it crosses through the wall. I don't know if you guys played. If you're lagging or something, things go through the wall, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
But they don't do any damage because it's just an animation that kind of went out when it shouldn't have. So it's really it's a new concept, having all this realistic physics and magic interacting with it. You know, you can make an ice wall, and then somebody can melt it with a fireball. You can, you know, hit one spell with the other. So, you know, fireball's coming, you hit it with a nice lance, and then it kind of, you know, they cancel each other out. Maybe you can even hit it with another fireball. So it's a very crazy way of doing things. Yeah. But I think if it's not done properly, it can give casters too much of an advantage, you know, because they will be shaping the terrain and being ranged. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're ranged and you can shape the terrain with your spells and hit from range, that, you know, and fighting against a class that cannot shape the terrain, you know, will take a time for them to destroy the barriers you put down, and they have to be melee to do damage to you. That's serious, you know, business. I don't know, but at the same time, can they give warriors and melee classes a gap closing spell? Because if they do, you know, imagine if warriors have a charge or something, you know, equivalent to that. You just get, you know, oh, look, a mage in your face. Then they have no chance to fight back, right? So, I mean, it seems like it's the way it is now, with spells spending people's health, plus being physical objects in the world, plus being ranged, versus the melee system. It's two extremes. You either cancel out mages completely and they can't do anything, and if they try to cast spells, they kill themselves, or they freaking explode you before you can even get to them. There doesn't seem to be a room for switching the fight. You know, it's just who jumps first wins.
Not necessarily. For example, they build an ice wall. A wall protects from both sides. If you build an ice wall, you cannot cast through it. So if the warrior is smacked against the wall on the other side, you cannot cast on him. So he has time to either break the wall or prepare to charge around it. So there is a drawback to building a glass wall or blocking your enemy, because it protects them as well as blocks them.
I was thinking about that as well. Like, are mages going to have an ability to kind of hoop up and shoot things over objects? Or because their spells are kind of like physical objects and they interact with things, if you have warriors and a wall of warriors in front of you protecting you from your enemies, can you just then not cast spells at people who are on the same level of you because you'd hit your own guy in front of you? I don't know if there's going to be friendly damage per se, but I would think that if there's a guy standing right in front of you, you may not do damage to him, but you might not be able to cast through him because he's in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, even with no friendly fire, if there is collision, then
your fireball will just be blocked by your tanks.
Yeah,
your own tanks.
It's complicated because then group combat could just turn into this big battleship, you know, where you have walls of people and then things flying over, you know, and nobody actually engages in melee because they're too busy protecting their casters and stuff, creating that wall.
Yeah.
So I mean, they have to be careful with the balance here, because, you know, they can make melee very kind of useless, just kind of meat shields, and the people who actually kill people are the casters, you know, and that's the whole, you know, that's the whole title of the show, is magic going to be overpowered? You know, there are many ways that it can be overpowered. Ranged in general can be overpowered if it's not done properly.
Now, we've already kind of gone into the interactivity between spells. I wanted to show the next part of this video clip real quick that goes over this concept a little bit more in depth for everybody.
But what it is the core of one of the things that makes this system different from each other. And that's how spells in this game interact with other spells in this game. So the interaction between magic in this game and either other magic or the players is one of the things that really sets it apart. Again, it would be very simple to have magic spells. All of these games have it. But what you need to think about as a player when you're considering being a mage and considering how this system is going to work is to think of these spells as more like other beings. It's more like not pets or NPCs in that sense, but as these creatures, these things that live in the world for maybe a very short period of time. And what does that mean, and why should you care? Because that's going to allow us to have a level of interaction between these spells that is incredibly unusual for an RPG or MMORPG. So let's take an example of a fireball and an ice wall spell. So you've thrown up an ice wall spell to protect you and your teammates. So those dirty, nasty Arthurians, they're getting ready to throw a fireball at you. So the mages throw the fireball. The fireball goes through the air, it strikes the ice wall. Now, in a very simplistic system, the ice wall could just vanish. You know, is a fireball more powerful essentially than the ice wall? It's more complicated than that. Let's say that the fire plus the ice combine, and maybe they create steam. Okay, that's not so bad. But now here's where it gets more interesting. So let's say that steam is created, and then those rotten, stinking, terrible Arthurians then cause a wind spell to start. And they take the wind spell and they throw the wind spell at the steam that has arisen. And that pushes that steam back onto the noble Vikings. And the noble Vikings end up in a 300-degree sauna bath. Well, some of them might like it, but for those who don't, that could damage them. On the other hand, maybe the Vikings, as clever as they normally are, see that happening and they create a wind spell to then throw that steam back on another set of players, maybe from the TDD, who happen to be attacking them too, and they get covered in steam. So that's the kind of basic interaction, but we want to do even more with that. So let's say, again, we go back to the ice wall and the fireball. So the ice wall is starting to fall. You know, the mages have been throwing fireball after fireball to weaken it. Well, the Vikings now, they get together and now support the ice wall. Again, don't think of this as just a spell. Think of this as a creature. So you are essentially healing the ice wall with other spells. So as the Vikings are pumping it up, the Arthurians are trying to take it down.
All right, so I just want to change the whole topic we're talking about here. Noble, honorable, genius Vikings? I don't like this video. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
I was, just watch this video on mute with your coffee and laugh your ass off, man. It's freaking awesome to see Mark Jacobs moving, it's like fireball, and then it's amazing.
Anyway, but it sounds like the mages, or at least the idea is that the mages may have some kind of a back and forth dueling sort of concept here. Like, you do spell A, well, they can counter it with spell B and push back and forth and do different spell effects, completely transmute your spell into something else. That sounds really awesome. Is it even feasible?
I don't know.
That's the question.
Yeah, it will
is it
depend
completely
on how
batshit
fast,
crazy?
How fast,
It
how fast
definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, how fast do projectiles travel? How can you tell the guy's casting this or that? Is there going to be like a weaving thing around him? So it's an ice spell, and you start casting a fire one. Can you move while casting? All of these things influence if there will even be possible to do such a thing. Because if it's all instant cast and really fast, then there's no. It's like, oh, he's got the item, dead. So you got. A lot of things influence, but yeah, I mean, it would be awesome if it was true. But then again, what about melee? Okay, spells, they're doing all this, they're fighting each other, and the melee are just sitting on the sides like, look at this, guys, it's freaking awesome. I wish we could do it. So I don't know.
That's my greatest fear, is that the magic is so cool that they can do this, they can counter back and forth with spells, that then everyone will just be like, why even play a melee guy? Why not just sit here and all be mages and just be going back and forth the whole time, and the most clever mage wins the day?
Yeah, because you don't need to move so much, and so collision affects you less, right? Positioning is less important if you're ranged. So in terms of, being hit and everything, so it's easier to play as a ranged. You have to move less. You see the battlefield from afar. It's different from a melee who is like in the middle of the action, And anybody who has played a tank and played a healer knows the difference, As a healer, you sit back And I used to say in WoW and other games, like, always listen to your healers, because the healer's seeing everything, and he's seeing the results on the health bars, right? So, but the melees don't. They're ingrained in the fight and surrounded by allies and enemies and unable to move. And if they drop their shield, they just get owned. So there are all these variables it's already harder to play a melee by nature. So if they make Magic this awesome thing and then kind of just leave melee to be the regular melee we have in other games, it might just be that melee is not good enough. I mean, now if they make melee hit so hard or be so advantage, have so many advantages to compensate for that, they might run into the situation that I told you before with the extremes. You either completely explode a mage before he hits you, or he completely owns you without you even being able to get to him.
Chris, tell me, do you? I assume you're gonna make a crafter, but just knowing you, but looking at the warriors, if you were gonna make a warrior, do you feel like, from what we know about the warrior system right now, do you feel like it's gonna be like it has things that can be cool like this?
Right now, we don't have much information about combat. I think also why our vision is skewed is also because of that, because we pretty much have no information about combat. We only have information about Magic, how they see it, all the different classes of Magic, but we barely have heard about the combat system, the actual melee combat. But I think, first, coming from a crafter, I think the engraving system, the ears system, is gonna give first a fighting chance to melees, because you can engrave your weapons and armors with runes that can counter the magic. And then when you're targeted, if you remember what they said about that system, it will do a lot of graphical effects when you counter a spell, like a green flame around your sword if you counter a fire spell or things like that. So it gives melees and combatants a graphical perk to compare to the Magic users. But still, I'd say right now, as things have been presented, yeah, Magic looks cooler, but will it be as effective? For example, we don't know about stealth. Hint. It's a big discussion.
Don't even go there, man. Don't even go there.
But a stealth class could easily overpower a Magic user while you're busy casting your spells, making sure you can counter the other spells. Somebody can come behind you and just stab you in the back.
Yeah, I totally think that melee...
You don't even need stealth for that. If you're focused on the mages right in front of you, looking at the spells flying towards you, you're not looking behind your back. I can come with a two-handed sword, be a barbarian, and just shout right when I'm behind you. I just give a shout and just cleave you right in the head.
Yeah, I totally think that melee is going to be just as capable combat-wise as Magic. They're going to have different uses. I mean, you couldn't have an army of nothing but mages, because then even if they broke in the wall and got inside the keep you were defending, the melee warrior is going to tear them up. But
Exactly.
I think that combat-wise, effectiveness-wise, it's going to be balanced. My question is it as fun? Is it going to be as cool to be the melee guy and go, I shall trudge down the field?
As Alistair said in the chat, in the Twitch chat, melee is going to be probably a lot around mobility. Casters will be a lot stationary, throwing spells, etc. The melee will have to move around a lot. So I think melee is going to be for those who actually, for some class, for other games, we're interested in DPS is because you were moving around, jumping around, running towards the enemy, when others who liked melee as a tank preferred to be stationary and just receive the assaults. I think all of them now, in terms of melee, will have to be a lot more mobile because the mages are going to take the place of the stationary combat.
Do y'all think that that'll be where the fun part of being a warrior is being able to run around, leap over people, do all kinds of stuff like that, maneuver around the battlefield instead of having to stand there going...
Yeah, that's what I like
Exactly.
for being a tank. I don't know if every melee will be able to do that, but I always have tanking abilities and stuff and things that give me mobility. I will certainly have those abilities. I'll make them and put them on the bar, but I don't. I hope they're available. I will play a class that has them available. But we're just thinking of melee as a general rule. We have to think that there will be many classes in this game, and they will have to make gap closing and snare immunity and stuff for kind of all of them, because if they kind of if one class is left kind of neglected on that field, they will be owned by casters, right?
Yeah. We got tanks, we got DPS warriors, we've got stealth class. I said the dirty word. At least
and there are different ways to do that, right? There are different ways to do that. I mean, if you're a melee and you have a shield, then you probably can survive a little bit better against a ranged before you can get to him. So you might not need so many gap closers because you're more tanky, right? You have a shield and etc. Yeah. But if you don't, then maybe you go down faster. So you might need a leap or a pull or something of the sort. But how are they going to make pulls? I mean. They're going to have to. Some of the melee classes might have some magic too involved.
Another thing to keep in mind for all of this is right now we've just been talking about mages. There's another class that kind of has magic. Maybe we get into bards, and I assume they're going to be doing things to help the melee people out the whole time. Maybe giving them protective buffs against magic. Mm-hmm. Maybe we already talked about speed buffs before to help them run across the field. So
yes. Yeah, I mean, the speed buffs help even the mages, right? Because then they can run from melee faster. But essentially, right? And,
the mage run.
Yeah. Okay. Here's your buff. Now, kite, running circles, killing this guy. But yeah, I mean, so definitely buffs play a huge role. So there will definitely be a different kind of feel to playing a melee and a mage in group fights, and then on more small solo fights, right? If you're like the only, your friend is gathering and you're a sentinel, you're protecting him, looking around, and then
bodyguard,
and you're a melee, and then you see a caster coming, you're gonna be like, oh damn, I wish it was a melee, and the caster's gonna be like, oh damn, I wish it was a caster, so that's the way it has to be. That's what you call balance. Right, because if it's any other way, if the caster is like, "Oh, it's a melee, I win," then something's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I guess we don't, as you said, we don't know that much about the combat system yet. I mean, we know how the crafting of abilities is going to work, but we really don't know how the combat classes are going to work out yet. So, are there any features or anything that you could think of to add to the warrior side of things to make them as kind of cool and interesting and compelling as the magic side of things?
Sorry, I missed the last part of the question there. I think there was...
Warrior melee features for melee classes. Is there anything you can think of that for melee people that would make their combat and everything as kind of not necessarily as fun, but as engaging as the magic system? Because I think that's what appeals to me so far about what we know about the magic system is the idea of how engaging it is. You cast a spell, somebody else can interact with that spell. It's crazy.
To me, knockback effects. Immunity to snare, like being unstoppable. This guy, coming a golem running down the hill and just like opening the way through people. Everybody's like, get out of the way, you're gonna get one shot. And everybody starts to get out of the way, and if you shape the battlefield with your body, like being this guy who just swings the mace and then throws everybody back, and breaks the line of tanks protecting the casters so that other people can go. This is what makes it cool. Giving melee tools that will shape the battlefield and move people and snare them and knock them down and stuff, so that other melee can get to the casters, so that they can actually break through a wall of tanks or something like that. Open the way. I think that's a cool thing, a good feature to make melee fun, and at least it feels freaking fun to me when you can just jump in the middle of people like the Dragon Knight had. that on
Control the
ESO
battlefield.
where you jump with the wings, you know, it's like boom, and it's like hook smash and all kinds of shit. That's cool.
Yeah, that for heavy armor and heavy weapons melee class would be really cool. For more damage oriented classes, a more fast-paced combat. We know that combat will be a lot slower paced than most games we know so far, but it can be still faster paced than a mage who has to cast his spell. So it takes some time. So to counter the visual trait of the mage and of magic, counter that with a more Twitch-like. We know that it's not going to be like some of the games where you have to actually a real Twitch combat, but faster paced. Instant abilities, no cast time. The animation, because we know that the quote unquote casting time for melee will be the time that you spend playing the animation. So faster animations for the DPS oriented classes, a lot of mobility, leaps, backflips even, but being able to move really kind of like the ninja of the battlefield, really being able to move around, hit one, run to the other, and disrupt the mages like that. Just one hit, interrupting the cast. Things like you don't have to one shot them, but disrupt their ability to cast.
What if? And I seem to be crazy about these counters ideas. What if Melee had a sort of interactive system where they could also have counters and things that would adjust other Melee people's attacks like the mages do? Like what if Alistair came barreling through with his shield and he's charging our line of warriors? He's going to smash us out of the way, and one of us gets in front of him with some ability where we basically bolster ourselves and knock him flat on his ass as essentially a hard counter. Just step up and go, boom, no.
Yeah.
Denied. Yes, that's the kind of stuff we want to see, you know.
Yeah.
And it's all, you know, melee countering melee the same way the mages counter mages with their spells, right? You know, you have, so essentially, you know, the mage has no way to stand in front of the warrior and protect anything. You know, there has to be somebody there that is going to step in front of him and say, okay, you know, I'm going to save your ass here right now.
Now you stop.
Maybe they have like a formation of defense. You know, you have like defensive, tanky guys there together, and having more than one. It's kind of like the Spartan mentality. You know, they've got their formation together. You charge into them, and one of them can use an ability and be like, "Bah," and you just kind of fall out. Yeah. Yeah,
shield wall ability. That would be freaking awesome because they already told that they have ritual spell, right? Mm-hmm. People can, you know, 5 casters on the back taking 2 minutes to make this big whatever spell. Yeah. And it would be cool if the melee could have formations and tactics of group play, right? That will be essentially the equivalent on the melee side of the rituals, where you can keep a formation and then you're immune to snare as long as you're in the formation, or you know, so maybe you move a little bit slower but you advance, right? Yeah. So all this is really cool, but all of that has to get a little bit out of the ability creation system. It has to be, you know, complementary stuff that they have in the game to help them.
Cooperation. Just like spells can combine, melees could combine. For example, Alistair with his shield, setting somebody off balance, creating an opening for a dual wielding guy to slash and go under the guard of another player. Creating combinations like that, cooperation between melees, and as I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna missay your name, but UJ said in the chat, the spare wall when you have melees charging, just like when you have cavalry charging.
A bunch of spears,
you plant your spears in line, and those who arrive take massive damage because of the speed they have. It increases the damage of the spears.
Yeah, the whole physics thing, yeah.
Exactly.
And one thing I like about that idea is it kind of differentiates also the people who are really focused towards the siege warfare. You know, like, oh, I've focused my skills and do all these things that help us fight better together. But then if they go out kind of in a remote area and they get in a small skirmish, they're kind of at a certain disadvantage out there because they're used to fighting with guys at their backs, and if there's just one or two of them.
And that's what I was thinking.
We'll go back to the choice matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, carrying some alternative weapon set. So basically, well, you're going to protect your crafters now because they're gathering something. So you're going to be doing skirmishes, small fights. No, you're not defending or attacking anything. You're just kind of basically the crafter can run, so you can run with him and stuff. So you need, like a dual wield or something if you're a warrior, so you can be you can be faster, you can do more damage and stuff. But now you know that you're going to go to a siege. So put some heavy armor, get a shield and a spear, and then go to the front lines because that's what you're going to be doing. This is a big fight. It's going to be a big fight. So you can prepare ahead of time and plan your gear and your weapon towards what you're going to do. And obviously, if you're caught off guard, then you're kind of screwed. The same for mages. You put certain spells in the bar because you're going to have, you put long range spells and stuff because you're doing a siege. Or you put more, snare and debuff, close quarter spells if you're doing skirmishes, right?
All right. Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about warriors and is magic too awesome, which is necessary because we're kind of comparing here. But from the magic system, we know that it has a lot of things it can do. You can summon walls, you can do spells of different effects, different elements, all kinds of customizabilities, just like the warriors can. You can destroy a wall, turn it into steam maybe, and blow it back at somebody else. You can do all kinds of crazy things with it. Spellcasters are going to be kind of vulnerable. They move slow. They use their own health possibly to power their spells. It's a lot of stuff. I guess to round things off, what are your final thoughts and impressions about the magic system?
Well, go ahead, Chris.
It's just magic is, as I said, it's going to be very attractive for those who like big, flashy things. It's going to be a lot of spells, a lot of fire, storms, earth shatters, things like that. So it's very flashy. Now, as it's been said a lot of times, you can gimp your character. You can make wrong choices. So if you start making wrong choices, making it visually fun, effective, maybe not always. So it has to be very situational, and casters will need to counterbalance the power of their spells, will need to prepare ahead of time, and if they caught off guard, they're at a disadvantage. Just like in D&D, in the pen and paper RPG, you learn your spell in the beginning of the day, and you have only those spells available. So when you go out, you set out to do something, you learn your spells, and if you want to change spells, you have to take time to open your book, take your spells and put them in your bar. So it has to take some downtime so you don't instantly change your abilities. It has to be very situational.
Yeah. And it's not going to even be worth to do that if you're getting hit in melee, for example. I don't think it's going to be a good thing. It's like, oh, wait a second, stop hitting. I need to grab my spell book here. That's not going to work. So yeah, I agree with that. The mage is having to prepare better in the end of the day. Basically, even if you're like I said, the situation that I gave before, you have a sword and you have a dual wield sword if you're on skirmishes, and then you have a shield and a spear if you're doing a siege. Well, with a shield and a spear, you're still efficient as a warrior even on a skirmish, right? Mm-hmm. But the mage might not be so much, So all of that has to come into account. I do hope, it's too early to say, that it's broken, but they have to pay attention. And somebody said on chat, Nazwinger said on chat, and I kind of agree. It seems like tanks and melee stuff is always an afterthought in many MMOs. Like, they do the magic and they balance that out and the healing and how it works. And it's like, oh, damn, we need, let's now finish up the warrior because it's easy, right? And then it's like generic warrior, and that's it, right? We can't have that here. The classes need to all be thought out with with the same dedication, and try to make different classes, having cool powers that are cool looking and useful.
Yeah. I think this Magic System's got a lot of crazy ideas in it, but I think it could be a lot of fun. And I really still think, I don't think it's too awesome. I think it's pretty awesome, but I don't think it's too awesome, because I think there are some things they can still tell us about the combat system. There are some things they can work in there to make the combat system equally awesome, and I hope they do. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We're going to go ahead and have to see you next week.